Right, morning everyone, and welcome to the Natural Science Collection Facility's first webinar ever. We hope that this will be the first of many, so yes, welcome, and we hope that it all goes all right. Let me go to the next. So Chanel will have to drive it. Okay. So just as a start, just a few guidelines for the webinar and for engaging. Keep your contributions helpful and considerate of the host and other participants. So there is a chat box. You can just use that to chat. Say hello, let us know which institutions are here. And then there's also a question and answer, a Q&A box at the bottom. And these will be your sort of formal questions. So you can add questions regarding the project progress or panelist presentations. So we'll answer some of your questions live at the end of the presentations. But if there's a lot of questions, we might not get to all of them. And in that case, we'll answer questions on the webinar link afterwards. All right, so I think just to start, let me just introduce the panel. So we've got Audrey Ndaba, who's the the coordinator for the curation and collection management. We've got me, Michelle Hamer, who's the NSCF lead, Ian Engelbrecht, who's the data coordinator, Fulu Galebe, who's the Outreach and Communications Officer, and Chanel Ribeiro, who's the Project Manager for the NSCF. So yeah, so that's us. At the moment, I think we've got 41 participants, which is great. All right, so let's get started. We hope we won't run too far over time. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of background to why we've decided to do this. You know, in the NSCF forum in 2019, several people said that there wasn't enough communication coming from the NSCF Hub team about what's happening. And I said that we'd look into using technology like webinars to improve the communication, especially considering that we have a challenge. We've got a network of institutions scattered across 6 provinces, 16 institutions, and about 220 staff. So connecting with all of them is a challenge. And now we have a lockdown with travel restrictions, and we've had to rethink so much of what we do and how we do it. So I've put here no forum for 2020, but that may not be accurate. We might have a forum, but it might not be the type of forum that we've had before. We won't be getting together physically in October all in one place. We won't be having physical working group meetings or coordinating committee meetings or change management sessions. So not the traditional all travel to one place kind of thing. The NSCF Hub team are working from home. We scattered across 4 different provinces. So it's a very different world. And of course, we're wondering what's happening with the NSCF community. And do they know what's happening with the NSCF? So that's why we thought a webinar. Let's do a webinar. And hopefully it'll be the first of many so that we can all connect again and make sure that the NSCF, which includes all of you, all the staff at institutions, that we can continue to work to secure and make accessible our collections, and that society understands their value and importance as irreplaceable global research infrastructure. All right, so the next slide. So at the moment, we've got about 16 staff as the Hub team and data technicians. And we decided on the 23rd of March that we would all work from home. So we've been over 100 days now, we've been working from home. We sat in the garden and we made a plan how we could do it, packed up computers, laptops, and everyone headed home. And we've managed to stay productive through all this time. So we keep in contact with a weekly meeting using Zoom. We have our check-in and we make sure that everyone is okay. We have some people sitting at home alone. They've been on their own completely. We also have a WhatsApp group and we do a weekly report. Everyone completes a short report to show what they did each day. And then we have had longer team meetings and we've had sessions with Des and Ilse, the change management people. We've run a panel to allocate funds to the institutions virtually. And we're working on the new collaboration agreements. And now we are in the process of signing the agreements. I think two have been done and one is almost done. So all of this we've been able to do working from our homes. It's not always easy. So it might sound great, but in reality, there are challenges. And those of you who have been working at home will know. So you've got to make sure that everyone has data. People have computer problems. How do you solve them? It's a bit easier now where you can move around, but at first where you weren't allowed out, it was really difficult. And we have to, also we've got some staff who are employed to work in collections and we've had to make sure that they can work at home and have something to do. So our staff have really been incredible. They're doing things that are not in their job description. They're prepared to use their money to buy their own data and then claim back. And they've kept working even when motivation was low. And those of you who've been working at home know if you've got children, if you've got pets, and you've got chores to do, and you've got distractions, and our current environment is not easy. You know, working in the time of a global pandemic, things are very uncertain. So it's not always easy to just keep going. And we have to recognize that. Okay, I think Chanel, the next slide. So yeah, so we've luckily the hub team, like the coordinating committee, we've been having change management and organizational development sessions since the beginning of 2018. And I think this has helped us cope with uncertainty and change and complexity and understanding the importance of connections and communication. So a number of times staff from the various institutions have said, like, why do we need change management? Why do we need these sessions? Why don't we just get on with the business? And now I think we're so grateful that we've had these sessions to prepare us. I don't think we would have been able to cope if we hadn't had that exposure to concepts like this. We've learned that we can work from home. We don't have to be crammed into our horrible dark offices, but we do miss having other people. And then, like I said, it's not always easy to work from home. We're having to think about not just dealing with the day-to-day, getting on with the day-to-day business, but we're having to think of different opportunities that have opened up now with the global pandemic, and that may sound strange. But, you know, for the first time, I was able to attend an international ICOM and spinach conference virtually. And other people who wouldn't have normally been able to go to those conferences were able to attend. And there have been international webinars, which have been fantastic, that people have been able to participate in. And now we can see that virtual museums and virtual collections have become a global priority as people can't travel anymore. So this has become really, really important. So what have we been doing? We've recognized we're going to save a huge amount of money from not having the physical forum and not having physical meetings. We will have some people traveling in, and the two herpetology technicians will they'll be the first ones to venture out since the lockdown. They're going to KZN Museum next week, I think, to go work on the herpetology collection there. So they're going to have to move around, but otherwise the rest of us are not going to be traveling. We also know that it's a real struggle now to procure anything because of the lockdown. And so from this year's budget, we've been able to save 68% of it, and we've given it back to the Department of Science and Innovation so that it can go to Government Solidarity Fund to fight the virus and help people affected economically. So DSI had asked us to think about this, but we've been able to do it, and they're very pleased. And I feel that that's the right thing to do. I think it's a good thing. Everybody's making sacrifices and contributions. So I think now you'll be able to see the Hub staff's presentations, and you'll see that we will still be able to achieve a huge amount this year. And everyone is energetically and enthusiastically moving forward with projects. And we really hope that you'll all get involved and join us in this strange new world that we live in. So from there, I'll hand over to whoever's next.
Thanks, Michelle. Morning, everyone. I'll be giving an update on the network partners' funding, staffing, and outputs. As you all might know, we have 16 participating institutions in the network, which hold natural science collections. And in the first phase of the project, we signed collaboration agreements and distributed funding to 10 of the institutions. In the next phase, we are aiming to sign agreements and distribute funding to all 16 institutions. So the process for allocation of funds already started in February this year, when institutions delivered their funding requests at the NSCF Coordinating Committee meeting. Partners discussed and debated how the process should work. And during the advisory committee meeting in March, the advisory committee agreed that a funding panel should be convened, consisting of 2 coordinating committee members, 2 advisory committee members, and then members of the NSCF Hub team. The funding panel met in April and allocated funding based on the NSCF funding framework and business plan. The panel also agreed that some funds should be centralized to cover collection, care, and upgrade items, which would allow institutions to adhere to the standards and procedures as set out in the Collections Management Manual, which is being developed. A portion of the budget was also centralized to cover DNA barcoding across institutions by developing a DNA barcoding plan for the NSCF to ensure that this work is done based on standardized procedures and practices. The total amount allocated to institutions is 10 million Rand over 3 years, where most of this funding should be spent by October 2020, a very tight deadline. This is due to the fact that we received our 2019-20 allocation in the last month of the financial year. However, institutions have been overwhelmingly positive and are hard at work to get their agreements signed and procurement rolling, even despite the challenges of being in lockdown. Then moving on to staff appointments. During the last 3 years, we have made quite a number of short-term contract appointments to assist institutions with specific projects, such as incorporation of backlog specimens, identifications, and data capture. We also awarded travel grants to local and international scientists to travel to institutions and assist with this work. In the next phase, we did plan to award travel grants for institution staff to attend international conferences and for visiting scientists to travel to institutions. However, the lockdown and travel restrictions mean that this will not be possible this year. And as Michelle mentioned, this funding was channeled to the COVID-19 Relief Fund. The work on backlogs and incorporation of orphan collections still do continue, and some of these short-term staff contracts have been extended to complete the work. As Michelle said, we also recently appointed 2 curation technicians who will be assisting institutions with backlog herpetology collections. They've already recently curated and databased the McGregor collection and will be traveling to the KZN Museum. Ian will be giving a more detailed update on this work. Work on the imaging and data capture of the priority plant families in herbaria also continues. So far, 6 orphan collections have been relocated and have been or are in the process of being incorporated. Looking forward, we will be identifying more collections that are at risk and need to be moved to major collections. Noteworthy is the Buse Herbarium, who is in the process of incorporating 2 other collections, the Cullick and Ward Herbarium. Then moving on to reporting and outputs by institutions. The online reporting system on the NSCF Google Drive continues to work well, and institutions were able to report their outputs for the last quarter during lockdown. Thank you to everyone for getting the numbers in. We were able to once again show to the DSI the importance of the collections and how they are being used. And then for the 2019-20 financial year, institutions reported 250 new species described, 201 papers were published, 22,000 specimens were identified, and over 1.3 million data records were provided to external users. We of course expect that output numbers will be less for the foreseeable future. And this is why it is important that our data is accessible and can be used, and that we find new ways of working to stay relevant. Thank you. I'll now give over to our Science Communication Officer, Fulugelebe.
Thanks, Chanel, and thank you everyone just for hopping in and joining us. It's our first webinar, and so we're so excited to have you, and we're so excited to see you respond positively to what we are doing in terms of communication as a whole also. Chanel, please go to the next slide. Next slide. So I'll be starting with the initiative that we have taken as the Hub team to check in with the entire community. So I divided this into 2 parts. The first one, I got in contact with the coordinating committee, and then the second part was with the broader community, which is everyone at the institutions. So in terms of the coordinating committee, I was able to get in touch with 20 people. 3 I haven't been able to, and 3 were busy, so I won't be doing that. And most of them have been via phone calls, and only 2 have been via Zoom. The attitude overall is quite positive. Everyone has accepted the situation that we're in, and they appreciate also the initiative that we have taken to check in with people and find out how they are doing. And personally, everyone some people are appreciative of their health and being with family, spending more time with the people that they love. However, some people are away from their family members, and so that's a struggle for them, and it can't be easy. It's frustrating for them, and some are feeling challenged also due to the changes that they have had to go through. Let's go on to the next slide. In terms of collections, some institutions have indicated that they go into the institution to check on the collections. However, there are some that haven't been able to, and I believe that as we share our practices with each other, some of the institutions that were not able to do this will now start doing it, because it's quite important. Connectivity, some get some dongles from their institutions. However, most people are using their own connectivity, and it's just due to difficulties that come with either getting a dongle or either the one that you have at home is more usable than the one at work. Team meetings, as Michelle mentioned, we as the Hub team hold team meetings regularly. In terms of the entire network, some are not doing it regularly, but they are having team meetings, which is quite good. It's something that we want everyone to do. It helps with morale and it helps to keep people motivated and connected. Some are using Zoom, some are using WhatsApp groups, some email, personal calls. Whatever way works for you is great, as long as there is communication. We asked also about budget cuts because we recently were requested to cut our budget by the department, and so we just wanted to know if some of you have received such requests, and none have indicated that they've received such. It's just that people are rebudgeting due to the conditions that we're in. Next slide. Now, in checking in with the broader community, I have recently started with this, and I failed quite miserably when I started doing it via asking people via the newsletter and social media. But I have had slight success as I requested managers and directors to help me with this. And I have already done 2 check-ins or check-ins with 2 institutions. And I just had one just before this webinar. And overall, this time is hard for everyone. Some are depressed, some are scared, some are positive, so it's all over because we are different as people and we deal with different situations differently. Most people can't wait to go back to work, and yeah, it's something that I have seen quite a lot. Next slide. In terms of the newsletter, we published the newsletter twice a month on a Friday, and it is based on, or it is directed to the NSCF community. So it's not for the general public. But if there's information that is there that you'd like to share with anyone, you're welcome to do that. Recently, we have revamped it, and we're using MailChimp, which is an online platform. It's just more things that we can do there, and it's easier, and it generates reports, which is great. I'm going to share some of the things that I got from those reports. We currently have 264 contacts on the mailing list. And if you know someone in your institution that you'd like to have added into the mailing list, you can email me or contact me in any way that you feel comfortable with, and I'll add them. Next slide. So I'm going to just share the reports from 2 newsletters that we published. I won't share on the recent one, last Friday's one, because I don't have enough data. But this is just a comparison of the 2. 98.9% of the first one was delivered to people, and 99.6% from the last, the second newsletter was delivered. So that's an up. So people are getting used to getting it, or the new revamped or the online newsletter. 63 opened, 74. So you can see from these numbers that it's growing, though on the last one there was 1 bounce. I'm not sure why, but I can investigate. And in terms of opens, there was a slight decline, but in terms of everything else, except for the clicks, it's up. And so I'd like to just make a call to everyone to make sure that when you get the newsletter, you open it, you click, even on the links, you can trust us. It's not spams that we're sending to you. Next slide. In terms of social media, we have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. I just today changed the Facebook group to the name NSCF Community, just to make it clear what the group is for. And we also on Twitter and Instagram. Please, if you haven't, go and like our page, join the group, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram, and like the posts and comment and share, and just help us with engagement. We post visual graphics daily, mostly, and if you like them, just let me know, because if you show that you like it, then we can continue with it. The Facebook page is currently on 113 likes, 118 followers, and we have been recently getting more engagement from the community. So thank you and keep up with it. The Facebook group is at 195 members, and we have a lot of member requests. We're going to be working on this because the trouble is we don't know if these people are members of our network partners. So we will find ways of dealing with this. Twitter, we are at 85 followers, Instagram 78 followers. So you can see from these numbers that it's not everyone in the community that has followed and liked our social media pages. So please go ahead and do that. Next slide. We have found new ways of working with this pandemic. So the hub team is using Slack. Slack is it's online, and it's a platform where we have a shared view of progress and purpose. We have conversations that are organized. It's simple to follow conversations or find important information there. We have, you can choose which conversations are most important and which can wait. It's like being in one office, but each person at their home. So it's like an office. It's working for us, I think, and I've been enjoying it. We're still going to review it, but so far, I personally enjoy it. Next slide. We're also on Zoom. We do weekly team meetings on Zoom, even organizational development. We've done the hub session with Ilse and Des, and it worked very well. We are also doing webinars now on Zoom. Everyone attends with the video on. It's just to add a personal touch to this. We have breakaway rooms. You can mute if you're not talking. So we've found ways of working with the platform and ways that are working for us. So we are trying to bring the personal interaction and keep connected as much as possible. Next slide. Thank you so much for joining, and just please continue, or if you haven't started, engage with us in any way possible. You can contact me at any time on my email, even on my cell. I'm available to you. Thanks. Now, I think Ian is the one who's coming up.
Thank you, Fulu. That was really great. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be able to talk to you all again here this morning. I just want to give a quick overview of what's happening on the data side of things. So we'll be talking about our specimen data standard, what's happening with the herbariums and the museums. We'll talk about the georeferencing protocol, and we'll talk about the data management training that I engaged with many people about before. Chanel, next slide. So starting off with the specimen data standard, this is one of the chapters that's going to go into our collections management guidelines document that the NSCF will be producing. I hope that that's not too far off, but I think it's going to be an extremely valuable document for everybody working in collections. The data standard is, it's quite a long document. Working with data can be quite complex. And this is something that came out of the data working group that's been through several rounds of review and comments and things like that. But it basically specifies the important fields that we want people to be working with in their data sets. It's based very heavily on Darwin Core and the Darwin Core terms, Darwin Core being an international standard, of course. It specifies things like dates, like formats for particular date fields. So we specify date formats and how values from pick lists should be formatted, how text strings should be formatted, that kind of thing. And while we were developing this standard, we actually realized there were some terms missing, and I've actually made proposals to the Darwin Core team, you know, the TADWIG group that work with Darwin Core, that we need to actually add some additional terms there for use in our standard. And this document has already been very useful for a range of purposes, for the kinds of things we're doing with our data collection for the herbaria, some of the specify migration work that we've been doing. It has been very, very useful. So anyone who's interested in data and how we should be working with data in museums and herbaria, please have a look at the document. Next slide, please, Chanel. One of the biggest components of what we're doing is working through herbarium collections, focusing on particular priority taxa, trying to make sure that all the records are digitized, and we will be publishing those records online through something like a virtual herbarium. We're calling it a virtual museum, but it's basically providing the records as well as specimen images available online. Our previous round of NSCF funding, the last 2 years, we focused on Proteaceae, the Iridaceae, and the Fabaceae. And this year we started with 4 new priority families, which are the Asteraceae, the Restionaceae, and Euphorbiaceae and Orchidaceae. In total to date, we've captured about 72,000 specimen records, and we've spent quite a lot of time working on our process for how to coordinate all of this, getting specimen images in from collections, capturing the records on our side, QCing those records, and sending those records back to the institutions. We've got an in-house NSCF data capture team. So these are our data technicians who we've employed to do data capture work for us. But now with the lockdown, we've also expanded that team a little bit, including people from other institutions as well, to help us with the data capture. And this is actually something that we're wanting to expand over time, so that we kind of have a distributed team of people doing data capture work across all of the institutions. So we're basically pooling everybody's efforts and energy and time together into a larger team to do data capture work. And we're wanting to do the same thing on the quality control side of things. Our quality control team is currently 4 people. We've just recently, 5 people. We've just recently expanded that. It used to just be Bronwyn that was doing all the QC work, but it's far too much for one person. So we're starting off with this slightly larger team, seeing how that's going with the data, with quality control, and we'll look to expand that as well while we're expanding the data capture team. And then we also have this RDE file cleaning tool, which I built, that just does things like, so it's the final stage of our data capture process, is we run a whole lot of RDE files through this tool before we provide the data back to the institution, to make sure that things like collector names are standardized, coordinates are valid, QDSs are valid, dates are valid, all of that kind of stuff, before providing data back to institutions. Next slide, Chanel. We've also got a lot of work going on with museums. Here we're focusing on vertebrate taxa at the moment. We've got people, RAs that we've been putting into the institutions to help process specimen backlogs, get things cleaned up. This is one of my favorite photos here at the bottom right. Two of the guys wearing their equipment while they were working through the McGregor Museum reptile collection. And I think they were having a lot of fun wearing that equipment at the same time. But yeah, we've made some nice progress on that front with helping to process specimen backlogs in a lot of the collections. And then we also have two photographers who are visiting collections and imaging specimens, focusing on imaging type specimens. Of all of these images, and the records will be going up onto a virtual museum so that they'll be accessible to the broader scientific and collections community. Next slide, Chanel. The most recent development is been the development of a georeferencing protocol. So this has turned out to be quite a valuable exercise. I thought georeferencing was quite straightforward, but when we started working on this, it seems like people are doing georeferencing very differently in different institutions. And so this is going to be an NSCF standard as well. We have a draft document that's been through a few rounds of review, and we've also started training some of our technicians to do this georeferencing. We have a QGIS, a set of layers and plugins for QGIS available that people can use to assist with georeferencing, and our training revolves around using that tool. And then I'm also working on a georeferencing tool which will help us georeference records in bulk using historically georeferenced records. So basically reusing georeferences and trying to make the georeferencing process as efficient as possible. Next slide, Chanel. This is the last slide. So at the beginning of the year, I put in a proposal to the JRS Biodiversity Foundation to start a training program in data management, specifically for collections people around the country. The idea was to upskill people in a range of different skills related to data management, everything from database skills to programming skills to using tools like OpenRefine, understanding standards like Darwin Core, that sort of thing. Sadly, the JRS funding application was declined, but we want to provide some funding to do the same thing through the NSCF. The University of Pretoria is putting together a course for this purpose. It's a course that will actually be offered through the University of Pretoria Department of Information Sciences, and it'll be an online correspondence course, a short course of a 1-year duration, part-time essentially. And then I'm also starting to work on online short videos for georeferencing. I think with a lot of the training that we were doing with the georeferencing, I realized that I could be recording this and simply making this available as online training courses, as online video training courses. So that is something that I work on, and we'll be providing that through the NSCF YouTube channel. So there'll be lots of training opportunities for people, hopefully not too far off. All right, so that's basically everything from me. After me is a lady that needs no introduction. We'll go to Audrey, our collections working group manager.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ian, and all of you who have presented before me. And thank you to everyone who has taken the time to join this update. As the coordinator of the Collection Management and Conservation Working Group, I manage the Collection Management Working Group. So Chanel, if you can go to the next slide. So for this working group, what has been a priority for us was to develop the common guidelines, the standards and operating procedures that will be used by the various collection institutions within the network. Ian has already mentioned that the data management chapter will be going into this document, the collection management manual. So this is the manual that you guys have recently reviewed in chapters. Thank you so much for your contribution. It was highly appreciated and it showed your commitment to the project. Another priority for the working group was to develop assessment sheets for assessing the status of the collections and the extent to which the standards have been implemented by the institutions. So the idea was the institutions will use the assessment sheets to self-assess, and then we'll collectively assess the institutions with the rest of the network. But given the lockdown situation and the restrictions on travel, perhaps it is now going to be the institution as well as the institutions within the region, as opposed to having more institutions present. But we are going to finalize the details. Next slide, Chanel, please. So these common guidelines are important to have so that we can ensure that collection management in South Africa meets the globally accepted standards, and they also follow the international practices. Why is that important, you may ask? It is important in terms of the credibility of the collections themselves and the data associated with those collections, and in terms of ensuring that the collections themselves are secured in the best way we have. So what the manual covers is collection care, amongst other things. We speak about health and safety of the collections. We speak about the conservative grade material to be used when we keep the collections. All these things are put together in this one document that will be very crucial in our day-to-day basis, on our day-to-day duties. Another reason for having these common guidelines, it is also critical in terms of training the collection management staff, and it allows the transfer of staff between the collections to be without complete retraining. It also allows us to assess the collections in a transparent way, which will allow for the gaps to be identified and addressed or taken up with the governance structures of the institutions. As I mentioned, that if these are common and we are all based in collections, and if we are doing the same thing, it will be easy for people from another institution to see where they lack when they visit another collection for their assessment. Then they go back and fix, and it will be easy for us to learn. It's not so much about seeing where you lack, but it's also helping each other through. If you go to the next slide, please. So how the manual was prepared, it took 6 national meetings which were held between 2018 and 2019, and the Collection Management Working Group concluded the compilation of these documents, and in the meetings, the documents were reviewed by the working group members. They were then shared by them with the non-working group members in the institutions, who were able to also give their input. So amendments by the coordinating by the coordinator were made and then they were put aside. The rest of the documents were later grouped into chapters, which then formed part of the chapters that you were reviewing before we went to lockdown and during the lockdown. So these included the chapter from, the manual includes a chapter from the working group, or from the data working group as well, sorry. The manual has standards and best practices for all the collection activities that should be used as a guide to implement in the institutions. The manual will also be a living document as it will keep being edited as it gets used. And so it has been developed using and following the best practices from the SPINACH, which is the Society for the Preservation of Natural History Collections, as well as the ICOMS, which is the International Council of the Museums, and many others, which are leading in setting the best practices. However, we are going to adapt it to what is applicable to us. It also, the manual has been used to develop the assessment sheets that will help the institutions to self-assess. It also has been used to identify the required collection management training, which will be developed soon and will soon be underway. It will probably be available to the institutions via YouTube and webinars, but we don't have a final decision on that. So yeah, the manual itself will help us to manage the collections in a professional, scientific, and effective way. What this working group, next slide, Chanel, please. The last picture shows some of the things that are covered in the manual, which we have been doing in those past 6 national meetings, which are also part of the chapters of the manual. If you have received the manual, I'm sure everyone has, you will recognize some of the things that are mentioned in the chapters that you may have reviewed. What this working group has also done is the establishment of the regional meetings, offering the non-working group members an opportunity to attend and get updates of the NSCF network matters, as well as to have a voice. We realized that not everyone was going to be able to have a place to sit in the working groups, so that's why we established the regional working groups. They have been successful in terms of increasing collaborations within the institutions, and the non-working group members feel included, and they have even also reached out to the working group for information. So as the collaborating institutions or partners, you are requested to continue to use that opportunity and just join the engagements of the regional meetings. We have also in the working group put together a list of suppliers of collection consumables for the network to use. It is available in the NSCF website. The document has contact details and information of service providers supplying the consumables. As a collaborating institution, please help by always sending through information of your recent purchase to your institution working group rep or directly to the coordinator for the updating and growing of this document. Next slide, Chanel, please. During the working group meetings, we take it upon ourselves to have fun. I miss all the working group members and they also know, I'm sure. We do what we call collection tours. Again, during these collection tours, this is where we see what the other collections are doing and learn a thing or two that we can take back to our home institutions where we can improve or even share with others. Because if we put our heads together to solve a problem, we always get more answers to the solution. Next slide, please. Chanel, next slide. So there, the working group members were going through the collection at the Durban Natural Science Museum, and they came up with the name of the working group because they put their ideas together. No, they didn't come up with the name of the working group, but they did come up with the solution to a problem. So when a collection object is acquired at an institution, it begins a new life, be it is collected from a field trip or a gift donated to the institution, or just a collection object coming to the institution for identification. It should be documented. It will be positioned, studied, and placed alongside many other similar objects. It will also be made accessible to others through loans, visits, shared data or any other way. So its existence as a collection object should not in any way endanger those using and looking after it. It is therefore necessary to identify each collection object in a unique way and to facilitate the management of every aspect of its new life, and that is collection management. We are going to definitely have more of the webinars where we discuss in detail each and every aspect of the chapters of the manual, which will always be there available for us as the network to go to and use. Next slide, please. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Audrey.
Right. Okay. So thank you to all the presenters for giving us that overview. I hope that the participants found it useful. So I see we've got 2 questions that have been put forward. Okay. So one from Benny from Herbarium. Some items proposed for funding were rejected by the group that advised on funding per institution. Unfortunately, there's been no feedback on why certain items were rejected. And it would be good to know why. So I thought that we had given some feedback on each item that had been requested. I just want to say, so it was very, very difficult. I can't remember the exact figure for what the total amount requested by the institutions was, but it was way more than what we could afford. And what we looked for were items that would have the biggest impact in securing the collections. And, you know, it went through the panel, and and they assessed each item to see whether it could be justified investing on it. But I mean, we can go back and just check when Chanel did send the results, the outcome to each institution, she did give feedback. Chanel, I don't know if you want to add.
Yes, so we did try to cover each item, but just to Benny, if there is an item that you would like to know what the feedback was from the panel, you're more than welcome to email me and I can give you the exact feedback that, or the decision that was taken.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so then from Teresa from Ditsong, have the details for the catalogue book supply been sent yet? She thinks she might have missed them. Audrey, do you know, can you answer that?
I think Audrey's frozen.
It looks like Audrey's frozen. I think that they've got information on the supplier. Chanel, do you know? Can you remember?
Yes.
We did look at it when we did the budget allocations.
Yes, so we are saying that the government printing works in Pretoria does have a catalogue book that will serve our purposes. So Teresa, I will send that to you. I'll send you the details and which item exactly it is, and then you can get in contact with them.
Okay, and then the third question from Kirsten from KZN Museum. Will there be a call for postdocs next year? I don't know, Chanel, I don't know if I can't remember if we budgeted. I know for this year we have extended Alex Holland's postdoc. So she's based at the Albany Museum. And she had a 2-year postdoc, and we've extended it for another year because the work that she's doing is now included in the in our NSCF business plan. It's the red listing for freshwater invertebrates, and so she'll be able to help us with that. Chanel, did we budget?
So no, we didn't include a budget for postdocs. Just because it's, you know, the budget was very tight, and, you know, the postdocs take a large chunk. But I don't know, Michelle, I'm sure we can relook at it later after this financial year, or even before that, because we do have our budget to spend before a certain time. And yeah, so we can relook at it.
We will look at it again. So you might think that it's really strange that on the one hand we're saying we didn't have budget, and then on the other hand I say that we handed back 68% of this year's budget to the DSI. And so people are probably thinking, well, we could have used that money. But the challenge for us is that the money that was for last financial year, we only received it in March. And we have to spend 95% of that money before they'll give us this year's grant. And so that's 19 million Rand that we would have to spend by September to be able to get the next year's grant. And we know that there's just no way we would have been able to do it. We've got to get new collaboration agreements signed with everybody. The budget allocations to all the institutions took much longer than we had thought. Appointing people, salaries, it's a big cost, but it's not a quick outflow of your money. So yeah, so we're caught in this trap of having to spend before we can get the next grant, and we can't spend quickly. But we'll relook at the budget. It's a moving target all the time. We have to look at it, relook at it. Okay, so there don't seem to be any other questions. I think I just wanted to give a few, add a few points. So the project that Fulu mentioned, her checking in with the coordinating committee and some of the staff at the different institutions, I think that the purpose of that was just to try and connect with our community again and to see how they're coping and how they're dealing with things with the lockdown. And so she'll be continuing with that a little bit with the staff at some of the institutions. Also the website, the NSCF website, we had problems with it. It had been hacked. I think last year, it was down for a lot of last year. We've got a new service provider, Jacques Skippers, and so he's got it up and running again, and we're going to be looking at it and refreshing it now. Then for the meetings, we are moving ahead with virtual meetings. So Audrey's got a virtual working group meeting next week for one day. And we will be organizing the coordinating committee meeting. That will also be virtual, and it will also involve Des and Ilza. So we will have some organizational development sessions in that. So they're just busy working on the plan. We're going to really try and make it more like a different thing, not just sit in a Zoom meeting all day for 3 days. We're trying to make it more engaging and more productive. And then the manual. So I know that the working group has put a lot of time and effort into it, as Audrey said. And we're looking through the chapters at the moment. So I am the one who's slowing down the process. I just need to go through everything before it can go through to the public publications unit at Sandy for publication. All right, so I think that's just a few extra points from me. I don't know if any of the other panel members want to finalize or to say any final points.
Fine.
No, okay, everyone happy? All right, so yeah, just to end then, thank you very much. We really do appreciate the show of interest. So we've had 47 participants. It's our very first webinar. I'm hoping that we will have more of this kind of engagement. I think it's really important. And there was a comment there about submitting comments or feedback, and you're very welcome to send Fulu additional comments on the webinar. If you have suggestions, if you have suggestions for other webinar sessions, and it doesn't always have to be us, the hub team that presents. if you want to do something, then send through a suggestion and we can help you set it up. All right, so thanks everybody, and keep safe, look after yourself, and keep going. All right, thanks everyone, bye then.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.